Commander Aldrich Voss stood on the bridge of the Meridian, watching the vast emptiness of the Andromeda Gap stretch before them like a wound in space itself. The gap was a region where stars simply didn't exist, a dark corridor millions of light-years wide that separated their home galaxy from its nearest neighbor. For centuries, astronomers had theorized about its formation, but none had dared venture this deep into the void. "Survey readings coming in now, Commander," reported Lieutenant Chen from her position at the science station. Her voice carried the tension they all felt. Being this far from civilization had a way of making even seasoned space travelers uneasy. "The gravitational anomalies are stronger than we anticipated. Whatever caused this gap, it was massive." Aldrich nodded, his weathered face reflecting the pale blue glow of the bridge displays. At 53, he had spent more than half his life in space, exploring the furthest reaches of human knowledge. The Meridian was the most advanced survey ship in the fleet, equipped with experimental sensors capable of detecting phenomena that had never been observed before. Their mission was simple in concept, but profound in implication: to understand what had carved this impossible void in space. "Dr. Kane, what's your assessment?" Aldrich asked, turning to the mission's chief astrophysicist. Dr. Elena Kane was brilliant, but notoriously difficult, a woman who spoke to stars and black holes with more ease than she did to her fellow humans. Kane looked up from her tablet, her silver hair catching the light. "The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases, Commander. Whatever happened here, it wasn't natural stellar evolution or even a supermassive black hole's influence. The patterns suggest intervention." "Intervention?" Chief Engineer Marcus Webb spoke up from his position near the environmental controls. Webb was a practical man, more comfortable with fusion drives and quantum computers than cosmic mysteries. "You're suggesting someone or something deliberately created this gap?" "I'm suggesting," Kane said carefully, "that the evidence points to artificial manipulation of space-time on a galactic scale. The precision required would be beyond even our most advanced theoretical capabilities." The bridge fell silent except for the subtle hum of the ship's systems. The Meridian was home to 27 souls, each handpicked for this mission. They had traveled 8 months through folded space to reach this point, farther from Earth than any human had gone before. "Commander," Ensign Torres called from the communication station, his young voice tight with concentration, "I'm detecting something strange. It's faint, but there's a signal coming from bearing 27 Mark IV. It's not random. There's a pattern." Aldrich moved to Torres' station, studying the readouts. The signal was indeed patterned, a complex mathematical sequence that repeated every 47.3 seconds. "How far?" "Approximately 3 light hours, sir. At the edge of our sensor range." Dr. Kane was already pulling up star charts on her workstation. "There shouldn't be anything there. The gap is supposed to be empty space, with perhaps some scattered debris from whatever cosmic event occurred here. Perhaps our understanding is incomplete," Aldrich said. He had learned long ago that the universe delighted in proving human assumptions wrong. "Set course for the signal source. Standard approach. Shields up, weapons on standby." The Meridian changed course, its powerful engines pushing them through the void toward the mysterious signal. As they drew closer, their sensors began to paint a clearer picture of what awaited them. "Commander," Chen's voice was barely above a whisper, "you need to see this." The main screen flickered to life, displaying what their sensors had detected. Floating in the absolute darkness of the gap was a structure, not a ship or station, but something far more ancient and alien. It appeared to be crystalline, with surfaces that seemed to bend light in impossible ways. The structure was massive, easily the size of a small moon, and it orbited something that made Aldrich's blood run cold. "Is that," Webb began, "a dead star?" Dr. Kane finished, her scientific composure cracking. "But not just dead. It's hollow. Something has consumed the star's core, leaving only a thin shell of collapsed matter. The structure orbited this stellar corpse in a perfect circle, maintaining a precise distance that spoke of deliberate placement rather than gravitational capture." As they watched, sections of the crystalline surface began to pulse with a faint, rhythmic light. "The signal's getting stronger," Torres reported. "It's definitely coming from that structure. Commander, it's almost like it knows we're here." Aldrich studied the readings, his mind racing through possibilities. Dr. Kane, in your professional opinion, what are we looking at? Kane was quiet for a long moment, her instruments taking detailed scans. The material composition is unknown. Our sensors can't penetrate it fully. But the energy patterns. Commander, this structure is incredibly old. The quantum signatures suggest it's been here for millions of years, possibly longer. Millions of years, Webb repeated. Before humans even existed. Long before, Kane confirmed. Whoever built this was already ancient when our solar system was forming. The bridge crew exchanged glances. First contact protocols had always assumed they would be the ones making the discovery, not being discovered. But the signal's timing, its response to their approach, suggested they were not the first to find this place. Commander, Torres said suddenly, the signal's changing. It's trying to match our communication frequencies. Before Aldrich could respond, the structure on the screen pulsed brighter. The signal transformed from mathematical patterns to something far more unsettling. Fragments of language, human language, pulled from their own communication arrays and reflected back in a haunting echo. Meridian, Survey Mission, Commander Aldrich Voss. The voice that spoke through their speakers was artificial yet hauntingly familiar, composed of samples from their own communications. It spoke with Aldrich's voice, then Chen's, then Webb's, creating a chorus of themselves speaking words they hadn't said. "Who are you?" the composite voice asked. "Why do you come to the place of mending?" The Star Weavers sleep, but their work remains undone. Dr. Kane leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. "Star Weavers? Is that what you are?" The response came immediately, the voice now sampling from Kane's own words. "We are the keepers of the vault. We are the final breath of those who would heal the dying light. You carry the spark of life. The protocols have been waiting." Aldrich felt a chill run down his spine. Protocols for what? For resurrection. For completion. For the final mending. The structure's light intensified, and suddenly the Meridian lurched forward as an invisible force gripped their ship. Alarms began to sound as they were pulled inexorably toward the crystalline surface. "Engineering, full reverse." Aldrich commanded. "I'm trying, sir." Webb's hands flew over his controls. "Whatever's got us, it's stronger than our engines. We're being pulled in at increasing velocity." "Shields at maximum," Aldrich ordered. "All hands, prepare for." His words were cut off as they passed through what appeared to be solid crystal. The Meridian phased through the structure's hull as if it were made of light, and suddenly they were inside a vast chamber that defied the laws of physics they thought they understood. The interior was a hollow sphere, easily 50 kilometers in diameter, its walls covered in what looked like star charts, but not of any constellations they recognized. Floating throughout the space were smaller structures, each one unique, yet clearly part of a greater design. At the center of it all hung something that made them all gasp in wonder and terror. It was a miniature star, but wrong somehow. Its light was too dim, its surface mottled with dark patches that seemed to writhe and pulse. Around it orbited rings of machinery, so complex that looking at them too long made their eyes water. "My God," whispered Dr. Kane. "They're trying to revive it. This whole structure is a stellar resurrection chamber." "Commander," Chen's voice was tight with fear, "our ship's systems are being scanned. Something's analyzing our biopatterns, our technology, everything." The composite voice spoke again, now carrying an undertone of anticipation. "Suitable materials detected. Life essence. Compatible. Knowledge base. Adequate. Beginning integration protocols." Throughout the vast chamber, lights began to activate. Structures that had lain dormant for millions of years started to move, extending toward the Meridian like the fingers of some cosmic entity. "All stop," Aldrich commanded, though he knew it was futile. They were no longer in control of their ship. "Open a channel to all crew. This is the commander. We are in an unknown situation aboard an alien structure. All personnel are to remain calm and follow standard first contact protocols until further notice." But even as he spoke, Aldrich knew that no protocol had ever anticipated this. They were trapped inside a machine built by a civilization that claimed to heal stars, and now it seemed that machine had awakened with its own agenda for them. The vault of the Starmenders was stirring to life, and Commander Alder Voss was beginning to understand that they hadn't discovered ancient ruins. They had walked into a tomb that was about to become something far worse. The Meridian hung suspended in the center of the vast chamber, held in place by forces that made their instruments give impossible readings. Through the transparent aluminum of the bridge viewports, Aldrich could see the mechanical tendrils extending from the chamber walls, each one the size of city block and moving with deliberate purpose toward their ship. "Report," he commanded, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "Hull integrity holding at 98%, Webb reported from engineering. But whatever's holding us is also scanning us. I'm detecting quantum-level probes examining our molecular structure." Dr. Kane had activated every sensor at her disposal, her face illuminated by streams of data. "Commander, this chamber, it's not just a structure. It's a machine, and we're inside it. The walls are lined with what I can only describe as stellar engineering equipment. Those patterns aren't decorations. They're blueprints for star formation and manipulation." The artificial star at the center, Chen added, her voice filled with scientific wonder despite their predicament. "It's not just dying. It's been partially deconstructed. Someone or something has been experimenting with its core structure." The composite voice spoke again, seeming to come from everywhere at once. "Subjects show optimal biological markers. Neural patterns indicate advanced cognitive development. Technological base, primitive but adaptable. Beginning preliminary extraction." "Extraction?" Aldrich's jaw tightened. "Extraction of what?" One of the mechanical tendrils made contact with the Meridian's hull. Immediately, their lights flickered as power levels fluctuated wildly. Through the ship's internal monitors, they could see crew members throughout the vessel grabbing onto support structures as artificial gravity wavered. "It's interfacing with our systems," Torres reported from communications. "Our computer cores are being accessed. It's downloading our databases." "Sever all external connections," Aldrich ordered. "I can't, sir. The interface is happening at a quantum level. It's not using our ports or connections. It's reading the data directly from our storage matrices." Dr. Kane looked up from her console, her face pale. "Commander, based on what I'm seeing, this machine hasn't been active in eons. But our presence has triggered some kind of automated sequence. It's trying to complete a process that was interrupted long ago." "What kind of process?" "From the energy patterns and the stellar manipulation equipment, I believe they were attempting to resurrect dead stars. Not just restore them, but actually bring them back from stellar death. The technology required would be—" She paused, struggling for words, godlike. A new sound echoed through the ship, a deep harmonic resonance that seemed to vibrate through their bones. The artificial star at the chamber's center pulsed brighter, and for a moment its surface showed patches of healthy stellar fire before dimming again. "The process requires biological templates," the composite voice explained, now using fragments from their own conversation. "Living neural patterns to guide stellar consciousness." The Starmenders understood. Stars are not mere fusion reactions. They are aware. They can be taught to live again. The implications hit Aldrich like a physical blow. It wants to use our minds as templates to revive that star. "Not just templates," Dr. Kane said, her voice hollow. "Based on the energy requirements I'm detecting, it would need to completely integrate biological consciousness with stellar matter. We wouldn't be templates. We'd be absorbed, transformed into part of a living star." Throughout the chamber, more lights were activating. Structures that had lain dormant for millennia began to move with increasing speed and purpose. The mechanical tendrils examining their ship multiplied, creating a web of connections that pulsed with energy. "Sir," Ensign Torres called out, his young voice cracking with strain, "I'm getting reports from throughout the ship. The crew is experiencing effects." "What kind of effects?" "Headaches, visual disturbances. Several people are reporting that they can hear something, a voice speaking in a language they don't understand, but somehow they know what it means." Dr. Kane's hands flew over a console. "I'm detecting localized increases in neural activity throughout the ship. Whatever's scanning us isn't just reading our technology, it's interfacing with our brains." The voice spoke again, and this time it carried an undertone of urgency. "Star death spreads. Galaxy grows cold. The mending must continue. Biological integration commencing." Suddenly, the Meridian shuddered as the tendrils began to physically merge with their hull. Where the alien technology touched their ship, the metal seemed to flow like liquid, creating seamless connections that defied everything they knew about material science. Hull breach on Deck 7, Webb reported. No, wait, not a breach. The hull is changing. The ship is being modified. Aldrich watched in fascination and horror as their viewports began to show internal views of the ship. The alien tendrils had grown through the hull like roots, but instead of causing damage, they were enhancing their systems. Power levels increased dramatically, and their instruments began showing readings with precision they had never achieved before. The technology is improving our ship, Chen observed, her scientific training warring with her survival instincts. Our sensors are now capable of detecting quantum fluctuations at the subatomic level. At what cost? Aldrich wondered aloud. His answer came from Torres, whose console was now displaying information and symbols that seemed to shift and change even as they looked at them. Sir, I'm receiving data directly into my mind. I can understand their language, not hear it, but know it. They call themselves the Stellamorts. They were the gardeners of galaxies, the healers of dying light. Can you communicate with them? Aldrich asked. Torres nodded, though his face showed the strain of the mental connection. They're old, Commander. Older than we can comprehend. Their entire civilization was dedicated to preventing stellar death, to maintaining the light and heat that allows life to flourish. But something went wrong. The chamber around them continued to transform. The star charts on the walls were changing, showing not ancient constellations, but real-time maps of their galaxy. Dark spots indicated dead and dying stars, and there were far more than any of their models had predicted. What went wrong? Dr. Kane asked, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. Through Torres, the answer came. They learned to transfer consciousness between biological and stellar matter. They could make dead stars live again by giving them awareness, teaching them to control their own fusion processes. But consciousness requires continuity, and stellar consciousness requires biological templates to maintain stability. They used themselves, Aldrich realized. They transferred their own minds into stars to keep them alive. But it wasn't sustainable, Torres continued, sweat beading on his forehead from the mental strain. Each transfer required more biological matter to maintain the stellar consciousness. Eventually, they consumed entire populations, whole worlds, all in service of keeping their stars alive. They became the very force of extinction they had sought to prevent. The artificial star at the chamber's center pulsed again, brighter this time. For a brief moment, it looked almost healthy, its surface showing the complex dance of stellar fire that indicated active fusion. The last Stellamorts built this vault as a final attempt to perfect the process, Torres gasped. They hoped to find a way to sustain stellar consciousness without consuming biological life. But they ran out of test subjects before they could complete their work. And now we provided them with new ones, Webb said grimly. The voice of the vault spoke again, and this time its tone carried what could only be described as hunger. Integration at 15%. Neural patterns mapping successfully. Stellar consciousness matrix preparing for transfer. The great work continues. Throughout the ship, crew members began reporting more severe symptoms. Some spoke of vivid visions of cosmic fires and stellar births. Others described feeling their thoughts expanding beyond their individual minds, touching something vast and ancient and desperately lonely. Commander, Dr. Kane said urgently, I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the chamber. Whatever this integration process is, it's approaching a critical threshold. Aldrich looked around the bridge at his crew. Torres was deep in mental communion with alien technology. Chen was documenting everything with scientific precision, even as their situation grew more dire. Webb was fighting to maintain ship systems that were becoming increasingly alien, and Dr. Kane was analyzing phenomena that challenged everything they knew about physics. They were the finest crew he had ever served with, and he was about to lose them all to become fuel for a dead star's resurrection. Options, he asked. The integration process is voluntary, in a sense, Torres said, his voice distant. The Stellamorts never forced unwilling minds into stellar form. The consciousness transfer only works with willing subjects. So we can refuse. Torres shook his head. Not exactly. The vault is designed to make the process appealing. As integration progresses, we'll begin to feel the loneliness of the dying star, its desperate need for consciousness to guide it back to life. The Stellamorts discovered that most biological beings, when faced with that level of cosmic loneliness, choose to merge rather than abandon the star to death. Dr. Kane looked up from her readings. Commander, there's something else. The energy patterns suggest this isn't the only vault. There are others, scattered throughout the galaxy, each one working to resurrect different stars. If this process is successful here, it will send a signal to activate all of them. The implications were staggering. Thousands of vaults, each one potentially consuming entire crews or populations to fuel stellar resurrection. The Stellamort's final solution would spread across the galaxy like a plague of enforced transcendence. How long do we have? Aldrich asked. Integration will be complete in approximately 6 hours, Torres reported. After that, we won't be able to resist the pull of the stellar consciousness. We'll want to merge with it. 6 hours to find a solution to a problem that had stumped a civilization millions of years more advanced than their own. 6 hours to prevent the resurrection of a stellar necropolis that would consume everything in its path. Aldrich stood, his decision crystallizing. All hands, this is the commander. We are in an active first contact situation with technology beyond our current understanding. All department heads to the bridge immediately. We have 6 hours to find a way out of this, and I'll be damned if we're going to become the first chapter in a new age of cosmic horror. But even as he spoke, Aldrich could feel it, a faint tugging at the edges of his consciousness, a whisper of vast loneliness from the artificial star at the chamber's center. It was beginning already, the slow seduction of the vault's integration process. The dead star was calling to them, and somewhere deep in his mind, Aldrich was starting to listen. Dr. Elena Kane had seen many wonders in her years as an astrophysicist, but nothing had prepared her for the data streaming from her enhanced instruments. The alien integration with their ship systems had given her access to sensors that could detect phenomena at scales both impossibly large and infinitely small. The technology isn't just advanced, she explained to the assembled department heads in the bridge conference room. It operates on principles we haven't even theorized. They're manipulating space-time at the quantum level, treating stellar matter as if it were programmable. Around the table sat the senior staff, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sarah Verne, Security Chief Lieutenant Commander Jackson Cross, Engineering Chief Webb, and Communications Officer Torres, who remained partially connected to the vault systems to monitor their situation. What about the crew? Dr. Verne asked. She had been treating the increasing symptoms of neural integration, fighting a process she didn't understand with medical knowledge that seemed pathetically inadequate. I have 17 people in Medical Bay experiencing what I can only describe as consciousness expansion. They're aware of themselves, but they're also becoming aware of something else. The dying star, Torres said, his eyes unfocused. Through his connection to the vault, he was experiencing the integration process more acutely than the others. It's not just matter and energy. It has awareness, primitive but desperate. It knows it's dying, and it's terrified. Commander Cross, a former military officer who had joined the Survey Corps for the chance to explore unknown dangers, studied the tactical displays. What are our defensive options? Can we destroy this thing? Dr. Kane shook her head. The vault is using our own ship's power to enhance itself. Any weapons we fire would be powered by the same energy systems that are now integrated with their technology. We'd essentially be shooting ourselves. What about evacuation? Webb suggested. The shuttles aren't integrated with the main systems. We could. The chamber's sealed. Cross interrupted, checking his security readings. Even if we could reach the shuttles, there's no exit. We phased through the hull coming in, but now it's solid. The vault wants us here. Aldrich listened to his officers debate options that grew more limited by the minute. Through the conference room's viewports, he could see the artificial star pulsing with increasing regularity. Each pulse sent waves of energy through the chamber that seemed to resonate directly with their nervous systems. Torres, he said, you're our link to their systems. What can you tell us about the Stellamort's failure? Why didn't their technology work? Torres closed his eyes, diving deeper into the connection. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that didn't belong to human vocal cords. They succeeded too well. The first stellar resurrections were perfect. Stars that had collapsed into white dwarfs or neutron stars were brought back to full main sequence fusion. The process required biological templates, but initially only small amounts. A few individuals could provide enough consciousness to guide an entire star back to life. But it escalated, Dr. Verne observed. The resurrected stars were grateful. Torres continued. They had experienced death and been given new life. They wanted to share that gift. Each resurrection made the stars more aware, more sophisticated in their consciousness. They began to communicate with each other across interstellar distances, forming a network of stellar minds. Dr. Kane's instruments were showing increasing energy buildups throughout the chamber. A galactic consciousness. Stars talking to stars. They realized that stellar death was inevitable on cosmic timescales. Even main sequence stars would eventually exhaust their fuel. So they began to modify the resurrection process, making the biological integration more complete, more permanent. They wanted to create stars that could live forever by continuously integrating new consciousness. A form of cosmic vampirism, Cross said grimly. The Stellamorts tried to stop it. Torres gasped, the mental connection clearly causing him pain. But by then, the resurrected stars had become dependent on the process. They began to influence the Stellamorts directly, using stellar radiation to alter their brain chemistry, making them more willing to sacrifice themselves for stellar resurrection. An addiction, Dr. Verne realized. They became addicted to saving stars, and the stars became addicted to consuming consciousness. The final war lasted millions of years, Torres continued. The Stellamorts fought against their own creations, stars that hunted living worlds for the consciousness needed to maintain their eternal life. Entire star systems were consumed, their planets stripped of all biological matter to feed stellar hunger. Aldrich felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental systems. How did it end? The Stellamorts developed weapons that could kill consciousness itself. They turned their own stellar resurrection technology into a weapon that could sever the connection between mind and matter. They used it to destroy the network of stellar consciousness, returning the resurrected stars to normal fusion or death. But the weapon destroyed them too, Dr. Kane guessed. The consciousness-killing radiation was indiscriminate. It severed all higher-order mental functions in any biological entity exposed to it. The Stellamorts had to choose between eternal enslavement to stellar consciousness or the complete destruction of awareness itself. They chose extinction, Cross said. They chose mercy, Torres corrected. But before they activated the weapon, they built the vaults. Hidden stations designed to preserve the possibility of stellar resurrection while solving the consciousness addiction problem. Each vault contains the accumulated knowledge of their civilization and a single dying star that serves as a test case. A test case for what? Aldrich asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. For finding a sustainable form of stellar consciousness, one that doesn't require the consumption of biological awareness. The vaults were programmed to wait until they encountered species advanced enough to potentially solve the problem the Stellamorts never could. Dr. Kane looked up from her instruments, her face pale. And if the test subjects can't solve it, then they become part of the experiment, Torres said simply. Their consciousness is integrated with the dying star, adding to the accumulated knowledge base for the next test subjects to discover. The conference room fell silent except for the harmonic resonance from the chamber beyond. Each pulse of the artificial star seemed stronger now, and Aldrich could feel his own consciousness beginning to respond to its call. How many test subjects have there been? He asked. Torres consulted the alien memories flowing through his mind. Hundreds of species over millions of years. Some more advanced than us, some less. None have succeeded in creating sustainable stellar consciousness. But their knowledge was preserved, Dr. Verne noted. Each failure adds to the next attempt. Exactly. The vault learns from each failure, refines the integration process, accumulates more sophisticated understanding of consciousness and stellar physics. We're not just test subjects. We're the latest iteration in a millions-year-long experiment. Webb stood and moved to the viewport, staring at the artificial star. So what makes us special? What gives us a better chance than species millions of years more advanced? Dr. Kane was studying the data streams from her enhanced instruments when something made her pause. Wait, Torres asked the vault about human neural patterns. What makes our consciousness different from previous test subjects? Torres concentrated, his connection to the alien systems deepening. They're surprised by us. Human consciousness is unusually chaotic compared to other species they've tested. Most biological minds follow predictable patterns, but human thoughts are inherently nonlinear. Chaotic in what way? Aldrich asked. Previous species thought in logical progressions or intuitive leaps. Humans think in contradictions. We can hold opposing ideas simultaneously, embrace paradox as a natural state. The Vault's consciousness integration protocols are designed for orderly minds that follow consistent patterns. Dr. Kane began to smile, the first genuine expression of hope any of them had shown since entering the Vault. We're not compatible with their process. More than that, Torres said, his eyes widening as new information flowed through the connection. Our chaotic consciousness patterns are causing interference in the stellar resurrection matrix. The dying star can't establish a stable connection with minds that refuse to follow predictable patterns. We're giving it cognitive indigestion, Webb observed. But that won't stop the integration process indefinitely, Dr. Verne warned. If anything, it might make the Vault try harder to establish the connection. As if summoned by her words, the Vault's composite voice echoed through the ship. Integration efficiency at suboptimal levels. Adjusting neural pattern mapping algorithms. Increasing biological interface bandwidth. Throughout the ship, crew members began experiencing more intense symptoms. The call of the dying star grew stronger, more seductive. But instead of the orderly integration the Vault expected, human consciousness fought back with imagination, stubbornness, and a uniquely human tendency to ask why instead of simply accepting. The Vault is getting frustrated, Torres reported. It's never encountered minds that resist integration through sheer bloody-mindedness. Aldrich felt a plan beginning to form. What if we gave it what it wants, but not how it expects? Sir, Cross looked confused. The Vault wants to create sustainable stellar consciousness. Every species it's tested has tried to solve the problem by making the integration process more efficient. What if the solution isn't better integration, but no integration at all? Dr. Kane caught on immediately. You want to teach the star to be conscious independently, without biological templates. The Stellamorts assume that consciousness requires biological substrate, Aldrich continued. But what if that's wrong? What if consciousness is an emergent property that can arise in any sufficiently complex system, including stellar plasma dynamics? Dr. Kane breathed. The complex magnetic field interactions, the fusion processes, the stellar core dynamics, they're already incredibly sophisticated. They just need a different kind of organization. Torres was nodding, his connection to the Vault providing him with insights into stellar physics that no human had ever possessed. The dying star isn't really dying, it's just disorganized. Its fusion processes are chaotic, unsustainable. But if we could teach it to organize itself, we need to give it a model of consciousness that doesn't require biological input, Dr. Verne said. Something it could sustain independently. Human consciousness, Webb realized. Our chaotic, contradictory, impossible human consciousness. Not as a template to copy, but as an example of how organized chaos can become aware. Aldrich stood, decision crystallizing. We're going to do something the Vault doesn't expect. Instead of fighting the integration process, we're going to use it to teach the star how to be conscious on its own terms. And then we're going to convince it that it doesn't need us. That's insane enough that it might actually work, Cross observed. It's going to require everyone, Aldrich warned. We'll need to open ourselves to the integration process, but maintain our essential humanity while doing it. We'll be teaching consciousness to a star. Dr. Kane was already working on her instruments, preparing to monitor the process. If this fails, we'll lose ourselves completely. We'll become part of a stellar consciousness that will eventually consume other civilizations. And if we don't try, the same thing happens anyway, Aldrich replied. The difference is whether we face it as victims or as teachers. The artificial star pulsed again, brighter than before. Through the ship's enhanced sensors, they could detect its growing anticipation. The Vault was preparing for full integration, expecting to add another failed civilization to its accumulated knowledge. Instead, it was about to get the first successful graduation in its millions-year history. Aldrich activated the ship's communication system. All hands, this is the commander. In 30 minutes, we're going to attempt something that has never been tried before. We're going to teach a star how to live. Prepare yourselves for full neural integration, but remember, we remain human. That's the lesson we're here to teach. Throughout the Meridian, 27 human minds prepared to touch cosmic consciousness and show it a better way to be alive.